Hey guys, how are you? I'm Janice. You're watching Smart Cookie. Today's a really cool day for me because I'm taking the Mensa test. Now, if you've never heard of the Mensa test, it is an IQ test, and if you score in the 98th percentile, that means the top 2% of the entire population on logic and reasoning, then you get into this special club called Mensa, and yeah, you can pat each other in the back and talk about how smart you are. In this video, I want to talk about my reasons for taking it, my expectations, and then afterwards I'm going to film and tell you tips, tricks, the types of questions I was asked. I think it would have been easier to prepare because for this test, I'm really not preparing. Last night I looked at their website. I'm doing this on sort of a whim, and I think it honestly will be fun. I'm one of those people, I like puzzles, I like logic, I like trivia, I like doing math for fun, I like Sudoku, so I thought this would be perfect for me. I'm a tutor, and it would be great to be able to tell people, hey, I'm part of Mensa, because who knows, maybe then they'll be like, oh, cool, I think you're smart enough to tutor my kids. Anyway, I am going to take it today. Here are my expectations. Based on the problems that I saw on their website, I think it's going to be a lot of word scramble problems where they give you letters and you have to scramble them around and make a word. I also think it's going to be pattern recognition. So a lot of times when you have numbers in a certain sequence and then you have to predict based on the pattern what the next number in the sequence would be. Also visual spatial puzzles, so maybe there'll be shapes and then you have to guess what the next shape will be. So honestly, that's what I'm expecting this test is going to be like. As far as me personally, I'm not sure if I'm going to pass. I think I have a lot of strengths, but I'm not sure if my intellectual strengths necessarily match up to this particular IQ test that they're going to be administering. The problems I did on their website that had to do with scrambling the words, I was a little bit clueless because these are really long words. They're words that most of us don't even use. And I was just staring at them and had no idea how I was supposed to solve this. The other puzzles, as far as like finding the next picture in a series, I think I'll do okay. I don't think it's going to be maybe as strong as I am with numbers or with logic puzzles, but I think I'll be pretty close. I'm going to definitely film after I take the test and let you know what types of problems were on there and also the weighting because that really matters. If it's all a bunch of word problems, I'm probably not going to do that well. I think that's all I got for now. I'm really excited because honestly, I don't even care if I pass or not. I get a kick out of doing this stuff, and I also thought it would just make a really fun, interesting video for you guys, especially if you're maybe thinking about taking the Mensa test. It might look good on your resume, or like I said, it's a fun thing to say at parties. Hey, I'm part of Mensa. It'll definitely make you stand out a little bit. So with that, I'm off to take the test and I'll keep you guys posted on everything later. Just got out of the Mensa testing center and I wanted to film a little bit in the car so I could give you my very first impressions. What was interesting to me was that the questions they had on this particular test, the one I took was the culture test, were very different from what they had on their website. So everything that I told you I expected to see, I didn't see. The whole test, there was no numbers, there were no scrambling letter problems. It was all pictures. So if you take the culture test with Mensa, just know it's all visual. The other thing I didn't know was it's kind of like 3 separate tests in one. And if you score in the 98th percentile on any one of those, you get an invitation to Mensa. So you don't have to score amazing on all 3. You just have to score great on one. If you're really good at being able to manipulate shapes in your mind, this test is going to be really, really good for you and really fit you. Also, if you don't want to do any math, this is perfect for you. Or if you're like me and you really don't like doing things with like scrambling letters around and trying to figure out what they spell. All in all, I really enjoyed it. I'm a little bit kind of like brain fatigued. Okay, one more thing I want to say that I forgot is about timing. The first section went really, really fast. I mean, they only gave you between 2.5 to 4 minutes per section, and it was a lot about speed and how fast you could get through the problems. The next part of the test, they gave us as much time as we wanted. So that was a lot different. You could think through things, you could go back, check your answers, which for some people is a good thing. For others of us that have perfectionist tendencies like myself, it can be a little bit of a nightmare because you never want to hand the test in. The next thing I did was I went online and I looked for problems that were similar to the ones that I found on the culture fair test for Mensa. There's way more IQ tests than I ever thought there were, and many styles of IQ tests that test different types of intelligence. So I found out that the culture fair test, the whole reason it's called culture fair is because it's supposed to be fair across different cultures, meaning it doesn't have a bias towards English speakers or people from wealthier countries, in theory, that tests raw intelligence versus things that were learned in school. So the first style of problem that was similar to what I found on the culture fair test from Mensa is called odd item out. And what this means is they give you a grouping of images or geometric patterns or shapes, and you need to select the one that doesn't fit with the others. So here I found a few online. These are not the ones that were on the test. They're representative of something really similar. And in general, these would be the easier problems on the test. I found that as I progressed along, the problems kept getting more and more elaborate, more difficult, more components. Geometric patterns would have more shapes and more lines and more noise going on. So it was getting harder and harder to figure out the pattern through the noise. Here, this is probably one of the easier ones. And as you can see, there's a bunch of shapes, and the shapes are black and white. Odd one out would be this shape here. Why? Because the rest of them all split the shape into two equal halves. And this is the only one where one piece of the shape, the shaded piece, is a lot smaller than the unshaded piece. So that would be the odd man out. Here is another one. Odd one out would be E, because the other ones follow this pattern of the dots being diagonal to each other, and E doesn't do that. The white dots are diagonal, but then that little black one is directly underneath, and it doesn't follow the pattern of all the rest of them. And lastly, there was a lot of these where there would be a grouping of pictures, and this was more about logic and reasoning rather than shapes or geometry. If you look at the first row, the odd one out would be the boat, because these three all have 4 wheels, they're transportation on land. Then you can go to the next row, and the odd one out would be this image here, because it's an eggplant and that's a vegetable, and the other 3 are fruits. Now, this row, the odd one out would be the bulb, because this is the only man-made artificial item. This would be the easy set. So maybe the first 5 or 10, by the time you get to problem 40, it gets really challenging. And some of them, I literally sat there just staring for 5 or 10 minutes, trying to figure out why one of them didn't fit. So it does get very challenging. Here is another type of problem. This would be a sequencing problem, meaning there's a series happening and then you need to determine what would happen next in the series. So it's similar to the ones with numbers where maybe the series is all cubed. So it would be 2 cubed, 3 cubed, 4 cubed. The next one, the series would be 5 cubed. Same idea except with pictures. The way you would solve something like this is you try to isolate the elements in the boxes. The black square is moving over to the right, and then it moves over to the right another spot. Then in the second row, it moves down one, but as it goes across, it keeps moving to the right. And here it starts at the bottom and then moves to the right. You would expect the black square to be in the bottom right-hand corner, and in your answer choices, they're all there. Obviously, we have to look at the other pieces, the circle and the arrow. The circle here in the top row, it's going to the left one. So in the second sequence, it went over left and then it went up. It's making a clockwise pattern here. And then you would expect that next one in this row to move over one. Here, we see it moving counterclockwise. It's going from here, then it moves to the bottom right, and then to the top. So the next one you would expect to be the top left-hand corner. And then in the bottom row, we see the pattern start, and this one goes back to clockwise again. So we would expect the circle to be in the bottom right-hand corner. We know it's either A or C, and we still have to determine what's going on with the arrows. Again, we're only isolating the element with the arrows and not getting distracted by the other shapes in the box. This arrow is pointed in, this one is straight up, and then that one is pointed in. This first arrow and this arrow are reflections of each other. Same with this row. This arrow and this arrow are reflections. This one's pointing this way. I would expect the one over here, again, if it's a reflection, to point that way. So the correct answer is C. Last type of question that I'm going to show you is relationship between data. So you have to determine what changed between the first two pictures and then follow the same pattern to determine what would happen in the second set of pictures. When we look at these elements, the arrow went from pointing down to pointing up, and then the shape that the arrow's inside of, it went from being a triangle to being a square. So what does that mean? One thing is the arrow flipped, and the second thing is we went from 3 sides increased by a side to 4 sides. Okay, so we have to follow the same pattern. Now this arrow is pointing up, so I would expect the arrow to be pointing down, which would mean I'm either choice A or choice C. This is a 6-sided figure, so if I'm going up a side, I would expect a 7-sided figure, and therefore the correct answer would be A. Again, this is a simpler problem. I'm doing it for illustrative purposes. They get a lot harder. But this gives you a general idea of what you're thinking about when you look at these problems and how to solve them. Hi guys, I want to take a minute and thank each and every one of you for watching. I'd also like you to please give me a thumbs up if you really enjoyed this video, if you felt like it was informative and helpful. Also, subscribe if you find this content really interesting. I'm going to be doing a lot more videos and posting every week. So if you're interested in more, and of course I'm going to give you the results of the Mensa test when I get it. I will film that. I will let you know what my actual IQ is because I have no idea. So please subscribe, please like, and please comment and let me know what you think. Till next time, bye.